realm come to acquire you?
He claimed to have found me in the Deep Roads.
Do you know where in the Deep Roads this was?
No. That secretive bastard refused to tell me. I would ask and ask, but no.
Paragon Braga. Were she to return and endorse someone for the throne, the Assembly would be honor-bound to accept her wishes.
If it will get you to the throne, I will find Branka.
She was going to Caridin's home.
Branka? By the stone! I barely recognized you!
I've given up everything and would sacrifice anything to get the Anvil of the Void.
My name is Caridin. Once, longer ago than I care to think, I was a paragon to the dwarves of Orzammar, the Anvil of the Void. It allowed me to forge a man of steel. No mere smith, however skilled, has the power to create life. To make my golems live, I had to take their lives from elsewhere. Shale of the House of Cadash, I made you into the golem you are now, Shale. But before that you were a dwarf, the finest warrior to serve King Valtor, and the only woman to volunteer. You, please, help me destroy the Anvil.
Help me claim the Anvil, and you will have an army like you've never seen!
The Anvil enslaves living souls. It must be destroyed.
Attack!
I need a Paragon support to settle an election.
For the aid you've given me, I shall put hammer to steel one last time, and give you a crown for the king of your choice.
Lords of the Assembly, I call for order. This argument gets us nowhere.
Then why these delaying tactics? I call for a vote right now. My father has one living child to assume the Idukan throne. Who would deny him that?
Your father made me swear on his deathbed you would not succeed him.
I apologize for the interruption, Lord Steward, but the Grey Warden has returned.
We should let the Warden speak. What news do you bring?
I bring a crown forged by Caridin on the Anvil of the Void.
Caridin was trapped in the body of a golem. This warden granted him the mercy he sought, releasing him and destroying the Anvil of the Void. Before he died, Caridin forged a crown for Orzammar's next king, chosen by the ancestors themselves.
And we are supposed to trust this? The word of a drunken sot and a Grey Warden known to be in Harrowmont's pocket?
Silence! This crown is of Paragon make, and bears House Hortan's ancient seal. Tell us, Warden, whom did Caridin choose?
He wished me to give it to whomever I chose.
The Grey Warden knows nothing about us. Why would a Paragon entrust someone like this with such a weighty decision? This is ridiculous!
We've argued in these chambers for too long. The will of the Paragon is that the Grey Warden decide.
I would grant the crown to Harrowmont.
I appreciate your forthrightness, Warden. You have acted with grace through this entire torturous process.
Let the memories find you worthy. First amidst the lords of the houses, the King of Orzammar.
I will not abide by this!
The ancestors have spoken.
Stand down, Balin. You've lost.
Would you let a surfacer decide the fate of the dwarves?
Watch out! They brought weapons!
Guards! admit I did not think even Balin would defy the word of a paragon, nor that so many would follow him. But most of Orzammar has seen him for what he really is, and I trust we will bring this insurgency under control.
I have faith in you, King Haramont.
Indeed. More than anyone but my wife, Warden, and I thank you for it. Those loyal to the throne will begin preparations for a surface mission immediately. Orzammar will fulfill its treaties. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must get to the palace and set our plans in motion.
And I must return to my duties on the surface.
This is the staff I carried as King Endrin's II. Take it as a reminder of your place in Orzammar. I wish you luck against the Blight Warden. May we foster another 4 centuries of peace.
Impressive work, Warden. King Haramont's impending coronation has been entered into the memories. Is there something more I can help you with?
I have some tracings you might be interested in.
What's this? A list of names. Most of these clans no longer even exist. Is this authentic?
You bet your hairy arse it is. Taken from a tablet in Caridin's fortress, no less.
Then is it true? The rumors of Caridin's so-called volunteers? Extraordinary! I would love to make a copy of this. The Shaperate has never had much information on Caridin and his golems, much less proof of this magnitude. Warden, I hope this artifact from our archives will suffice as a reward. I must inform the Shaperate at once.
You've returned. With all the excitement over the new king, I never expected you to remember my poor son. Did you learn anything about my Ruck?
Yes, but you might not want to hear it.
What is it? Is he dead? Oh, please don't torment me.
I'm afraid Ruck went crazy after too long in the deep roads.
Crazy? Oh, ancestors, save him. I've heard of this. Lost soldiers turning on each other, eating darkspawn flesh. Is that what happened to my boy? Why didn't you bring him home?
Ruck didn't want you to see him like that.
Such a good boy. Still thinking of me after all he's been through. I have to go to him. He needs me. Oh, he must be so frightened out there, so lonely. I thank you for what you've done.
I got him. He's all squirmy, but he's a big fella.
How much do you want for him?
Don't know. I'll take anything you can give. He's a fat one, though. Worth a bit.
20 silver?
I knew you'd be good on your word. Nice doing business.
The Swamp Witch has a great deal in common with my former master.
The Swamp Witch? How original.
The Swamp Witch has the same arrogance, the same air of cruelty. I would hate for it to have possession of my control rod. If it still worked, of course.
Let me tell you what you can do with your control rod, Gollum.
Is it telling me that if the rod did work, that it wouldn't want control over me?
I wouldn't go so far as that. I could, for instance, command you to go and jump in a lake. A very deep lake.
It fools no one. The Swamp Witch would control everything if it could. It would have us all dancing on its strings.
Oh, you know me too well, Gollum. Your revealing gaze has laid me bare.
I will be watching the Swamp Witch. It must not be trusted.
Now you're beginning to sound just like Alistair.
Now that's a thing of beauty, daughter. If you were carved like Blanca, all worth
Give me a moment.
Is everything all right?
Course everything's all right. Just give me one sodding moment. By the stone. I feel like I'm about to fall off the world with all that sky up there.
Is it that strange to you?
Strange? Strange is your wife turning out to prefer the ladies, not living in a world without a bleeding ceiling. Well, let's get moving. We're losing, daylight.
Oh, it's one of those subterranean bunny pigs. Oh, look at him. Come here, you.
He is pretty cute. Have fun.
Thank you so much. You've made my day.
Come to talk to old Ogren, have you? Don't know why.
What's wrong, Ogren?
Nothing. I'm fine. Just, I got a hornet in my eye is all. Did you want to talk about something?
I'd like to know more about you.
What about?
How do you like the service?
It's sodding great. At first I was a little queasy with all that air, but there's just so much of it. No one has any idea who you are or what you're doing. And the ale. Oh, who'd have thought? Ale made with grain. Aye, the surface is great. It's like a big, bright world of filth without a ceiling. My kind of place. Hey, let's go find something to kill, huh? All this talk makes my hands twitchy.
Why have you remained a Templar if you hate the Chantry?
Have you seen the uniform? It's not only stylish, but well made. I'm a sucker for good tailoring.
Oh? I don't think I've ever seen you wearing it.
I keep it hidden under my pillow. Sometimes I'll take it out just so I can hug it fondly and remember the good old days. Brings a tear to the eyes, you know.
So this is where you deflect questions with humour, right?
I'd use my shield if I could, but I think you might actually spot me hiding behind it. You don't really want to know about my being a Templar, do you? It's really quite boring.
I do really want to know, yes.
Poke, poke, poke. Tell me everything about your life, Alistair. All right, if you insist. It's not like we have anything better to do, right? The truth of the matter is that I did hate going to the monastery. The initiates from poor families thought I put on airs, while the noble ones called me a bastard and ignored me. I felt like Al Eamon had cast me off unwanted, and I was determined to be bitter. But I took some solace in the training itself, I guess. I was actually quite good at it.
What did you enjoy about the training?
The education, mostly, but also the discipline. You need to have a disciplined mind in order to use the abilities we have. It was difficult, but rewarding. I never really felt at home anywhere, though, until I joined the Grey Wardens. And Duncan felt my Templar abilities might be useful for when we encountered Darkspawn magic, so I kept it up. What about you? Do you have anywhere you consider home?
I guess my home is with the Grey Wardens now. With you.
It is? I didn't know you felt that way. We won't always be traveling like this, you know. Once the war is over, once the Blight is... well, a time will come when we'll have to think about having a real home again. Though that seems like a far ways off. And I suppose the Grey Wardens are gone for good. Either way.
They can be rebuilt.
I suppose you're right. We can create new Grey Wardens, but we'll never get back those we lost. I wonder if it would ever feel the same. Anyhow, now I've sidetracked us. We'd better get back to what we're supposed to be doing right now.
What do you wish of me?
Have you ever been hunted by the Chantry?
My mother has been hunted from time to time, yes. By Templar fools like Alistair, which should tell you how successful they generally were. Flemeth made a bit of a game of it, in fact. The Templars would come again, and she would look at me and smile and say that the fun was to begin once more.
You really had no trouble with them?
I am unsure. I was too young to understand, and perhaps 'twas bravado on Flemeth's part, or perhaps she was merely amused. I will never know. Flemeth would warn them, once. 'Twas a warning they inevitably failed to heed. And then the true game began. Often Flemeth would use me as bait. A little girl to scream and run and lure the Templars deeper into the wilds and to their doom.
Surely more would have followed.
Sometimes. Eventually. Thankfully, the wilds is a vast place. Once they found us, Flemeth would simply move us elsewhere, and we would be lost within the forest once again. I did not understand the danger we faced until I was much older. I had never heard of apostates or maleficarum.
Don't you regret hurting any of those men at all?
Would they have regretted hurting me? I was a young child. Yet do you think they would not have gleefully held my head aloft as a trophy? There are no trials for apostates, no prisons, no mercy. There are only absolutes, so only survival matters. If the wilds have taught me anything, 'tis this. First, you must survive. Do you disagree?
Absolutely. There are worse things than death.
Oh? I would ask what exactly, but I'm certain that would be a lengthy conversation, and suddenly I grow very weary. Enough of this talk. Let us return to the task at hand.
What were you quoting earlier?
The Kyun, the path to wisdom. I am not surprised you don't recognize it.
What is the Kyun exactly?
Ask a Tamasran. They know how to explain things to children. It is not for me to teach the Kyun.
What do you mean your mages are beasts?
I misspoke. They are not beasts. Beasts learn eventually.
That's hardly fair, Sten.
Life is fair. Is there some reason you insist upon discussing this?
I'm trying to figure you out.
I applaud your attempt to pursue knowledge, irritating as it may be.
Why do you think mages are evil?
I know nothing of mages themselves, only their actions. There is no use talking of this. We should move on.
Is there something you need?
What was life like in the tower?
I would be lying if I said it was easy. First, there were rules, and we were constantly watched to make sure we behaved appropriately. Then there was the study of magic. We had to cast the spells just so, control the effects completely. A single word spoken incorrectly, a gesture out of sync, and lack of focus. And we needed to have perfect focus, or we would be in danger.
At least you learned the dangers of magic from the Circle.
Without the Circle and my mentors, I would not have been where I am today. And there was joy in life at the Circle. The joys of fellowship, in knowing that you were not alone in your struggles. In spite of everything, I was happy in the tower, and I loved it.
How did you become a mage?
People don't become mages. They are born mages. The talent just surfaces later. But you are asking how I ended up at the Circle. I was brought there by the Templars, just like many of the other apprentices. I don't remember very much. I was very young then.
How did they know you were a mage?
I set a boy on fire.
Why?
It's a long story. I didn't have a family. I never knew my real parents. My earliest memory was of hiding in a hayloft on a farm, trying to keep warm. I was found, and the farmer's wife was kind enough not to send me away. But they had children of their own, and I was never made to feel welcome. The eldest son was the worst. He was always calling me a stray, and throwing anything he could get his hands on at me. And I don't know how it happened, but one day, he just found his hair on fire. Fortunately, there was a large trough nearby.
Was he seriously hurt?
I had singed his hair and eyebrows, but injured little other than his pride. Who knows what they would have done to me had he been more seriously hurt. Thankfully, all I had to endure was a few nights locked in a cold barn with a bowl of water and a crust of bread. The Templars arrived several mornings later.
Were the Templars mean to you?
One of them ignored me, but the other was kind to me. He gave me sweets and even sat me on his shoulders once when I wanted to look over a high wall that ran along the road. I'll never forget the moment the Templars led me into the entrance hall of the tower. I had never seen anything so grand in my life. I stopped being afraid then. I knew I was home.
Little did you know it was just a prettied-up prison.
Prison? You could see it that way. But those walls are there to keep non-mages out, as much as to keep mages in. I learned very quickly that for every apprentice in the tower, there was probably one who never even lived to see the Templars come. No child, not even a mage child, is a match for an angry mob trying to place blame for a failed crop, a hard winter, a baby born dead.
That's terrible and sad.
Superstition and fear is what makes these people behave in this manner. It will be a good long time before that changes. Well, that's about all there is to my tale. That's how I came to the Circle.
I have a question for it, if it will indulge me. It chose to side with Caridin and destroy the Anvil of the Void. I agree with its decision, and yet the Paragon Branca was the reason it ventured into the Deep Roads. Why did it choose to defy her? It could not have known for certain that Caridin would be able to assist it with the dwarves.
I was willing to risk it. It was the right thing to do.
That was quite the risk. I am pleased that it worked as it did. At any rate, I wanted to thank it. It gave Caridin the end he wanted, and I'm pleased to have been a part of it. I will have to think on Caridin's words to me. It was a great deal to absorb. Shale of House Cadash. Is that who I once was? I find this difficult to believe.
You're tall for a dwarf.
I am not a dwarf. Or at least, I'm not a dwarf any longer. If I was this Shale of House Cadash, as Caridin said, there must be some evidence of my existence remaining. I must find it.
You think something will trigger your memory?
I need to know that this is the truth, and not simply believe. What Caridin said, it has allowed me to remember one thing. I believe I know where Cadash Taig is.
Isn't that proof right there?
Perhaps it cannot understand what it means to be blank, but I must know. I must be certain.
Are you certain about this?
I am. I do not know why I am, but I am. I will mark the location on its map. If we can journey there soon, I am most curious as to what we will find.
Sire, I have more news. Yes. Well, it seems that the fighting has gone exactly as you...
I would like to know what you intend to accomplish, Father. Should we not be fighting the Darkspawn instead of each other?
The nobility should be brought into line and then the Darkspawn defeated. This is no true blight, Anora. Only Kaelin's vanity demanded it be so.
Beg pardon, sire. But blight or no, we may not have the manpower to face the Darkspawn soon.
Caelin approached your legions for support, did he
Never!
not?
Marek and I drove those bastards out! We'll not roll out the welcome for them now!
We need help, Father. We cannot deal with this crisis alone.
Ferelden will stand on its own! I will lead it through this, Anora. You must have faith in me.
Did you kill Caelin?
Kaelin's death was his own doing.
Are you all right?
For a moment there, I thought I thought it was all over.
Thought what was over?
Everything. I will explain everything when we are back at camp. Now is not the time.
This is it. Cadash Tig.
This is where you're from?
Perhaps. It may also be where I was found. These ruins are always overrun by vermin. There may be something noteworthy further in, however. Was this the home once? Did I live here? Whatever was once here is gone. Crawling with filth. Typical. I'm uncertain what I hope to find here. What is this? This I remember. It has dates and names. This is to honor those who volunteered, those who became golems. And there is my name, Shale of House Cadash. Just as Caridin said. I remember now. I remember, Shale. That was me.
You remember? That's wonderful.
Wonderful to remember being a soft, squishy creature of flesh. Perhaps. I will need to think on these things I have learned. Perhaps I will speak to it of them soon. For now, let us carry on as we have.
I think I owe you an explanation for what happened earlier.
Yes, you had me quite worried.
You should know that something happened to me at the tower before you came along. You spoke to Petra, did you not? She told you I saved her from a demon. I did, but I did not survive that encounter.
But you're standing right here.
Let me explain fully. I engaged a very powerful demon to rescue Petra. It sapped me of all my energy and will and left me drained. It took everything I had to defeat it. And when I was done, I no longer had the strength to keep my heart beating. I remember my life ebbing away. Everything receded from me. Sound, light. I remember being enveloped in complete, impenetrable darkness. And then I sensed a presence enfolding me and cradling me, whispering quietly to me. The sensation is impossible to describe. I was being held back, firmly but gently, as a mother would a child, eager to slip from her grasp. I felt life and warmth flowing through my veins again. I began to be aware of small sounds and the discomfort of my hip pressing into the cold stone of the tower floor.
That is an amazing story.
The Fade contains spirits both benevolent and malicious. The benevolent spirits seldom make themselves known, because they want nothing from mortals, unlike the demons. It was one of these spirits that saved me. Without it, I would be dead. And it has not left me. It is with me, even now, bonded to me. You see, I am supposed to be dead. It is the spirit that is keeping me in this world. And this is not the way of things. Perhaps the spirit did not expect this, but it is weakening gradually. I am living on borrowed time.
Then we will make the best of that time.
Yes, that we will.
What do you know about Andraste?
Andraste was the Maker's chosen. The Maker had long since abandoned the world when the sound of her singing turned his ear. Beauty, grace, and wisdom enraptured him, and he offered to take her from this flawed world to become his divine bride. But Andraste had an earthly husband and would not forsake him. Instead, she beseeched the Maker to return to his people once more. So earnest was her plea that the Maker was moved, and promised that he would create a paradise on earth if all abandoned their false gods and turned once more to him. And this is why Andraste began her exalted march on the idolaters of the Tevinter Imperium. The Maker granted her his powers with which to smite her enemies. Andraste brought the Imperium to its knees, and her victories converted many to the worship of the Maker. Alas, it was the frailties of men that betrayed and killed Andraste. Her earthly husband, Maferath, a chieftain of the Alamari tribes himself, grew jealous as his wife's popularity and influence overshadowed his own. She was also revered as the Maker's betrothed, and Maferath began to see their own bond waning in significance as Andraste became ever more devoted to the Maker. Out of envy and spite, Maferath made a pact with the Archon Hysarian of Tevinter, allowing his beloved Andraste to be ambushed and captured. Andraste was burned at the stake in Minrathous, the capital of Tevinter.
But Tevinter has a chantry, doesn't it?
The Tevinter chantry claims that in Andraste's last moments, Hysarian's heart softened, and he heard the voice of the Maker telling him to end her suffering. He plunged his sword into her heart, and as her blood washed over his hands, he became one of the faithful. Dissenters said that the Archon only converted because he could not stem the tide of Andraste's cult, and was forced to do so to stay in power. We will never know for sure.
So you said this Arleman raised you?
Did I say that? I meant that dogs raised me. Giant slobbering dogs from the Anderfels. A whole pack of them, in fact.
That's not what I remember you telling Flemeth.
Well, if you're going to go and pay attention to the facts, then fine. Let's see, how do I explain this? I'm a bastard. And before you make any smart comments, I mean the fatherless kind. My mother was a serving girl in Redcliffe Castle who died when I was very young. Our Leman wasn't my father, but he took me in anyhow and put a roof over my head. He was good to me, and he didn't have to be. I respect the man, and I don't blame him anymore for sending me off to the Chantry once I was old enough.
Why did he send you off to the Chantry?
Our Leman eventually married a young woman from Orlais, which caused all sorts of problems between him and the king because it was so soon after the war. But he loved her. Anyhow, then you, Elissa, resented the rumors which pegged me as his bastard. They weren't true, but of course they existed. The Isle didn't care, but she did. So off I was packed to the nearest monastery at age 10, just as well. The Elissa made sure the castle wasn't a home to me by that point. She despised me.
What an awful thing to do to a child.
Maybe. She felt threatened by my presence, I can see that now. I can't say I blame her. She wondered if the rumors were true herself, I bet. I remember I had an amulet with Andraste's holy symbol on it. The only thing I had of my mother's. I was so furious at being sent away, I tore it off and threw it at the wall and it shattered. Stupid thing to do. The Isle came by the monastery a few times to see how I was, but I was stubborn. I hated it there, and blamed him for everything. And eventually, he just stopped coming.
Are you sure he isn't your father?
Yes, I'm quite sure. At any rate, I don't look anything like him, you'll see for yourself. Not that it stopped the rumors any. All I know is that the Isle is a good man, and well loved by the people. He also was King Caelan's uncle, so he has a personal motivation to see Loghain pay for what he did. Anyway, that's really all there is to the story.